Hey, vinyl community! I'm back with a video that I teased a couple videos ago regarding a Grail I had coming in the mail via a trade. Um, so we're going to get to that album right away, and there's going to be a story attached to it, which I kind of teased along with me telling you all about this album. And it's been a while since I've had story time. But I don't want to make this all about the story. The story is kind of secondary, although it'll take longer than showing you the album. Um, if you are a new subscriber, I have done stories in the past about Pantera, and I think there's a few other ones. But anyways, that's kind of, if you go back in my videos a long time ago, you'll see. Anyways, cheers everyone. Um, the album I'm going to show you is, it's probably in the description, so it's no surprise. What is this, from 1992? I will tell you, the contents of this video is all off the top of my head, except for one little minor detail I tried to Google before the record button's right there. But that Google search was to no avail. Anyways, let's get to the album. It's, I believe, 1992's Butthole Surfers, Independent Worm Saloon. This is an original Capitol Records pressing, and it was sealed up until this afternoon. And I'm not a big proponent of sealed vinyl. Occasionally I'll have an extra copy of something I know is going to be collectible, and I'll shove that in the collection, and I'll have a copy to play. But generally speaking, if it comes in through my hands and it's sealed, it's for play and it's getting opened. So anyways, I did open this and I did play it, and I'm very, very happy with it. Butthole Surfers, in around 1992, 93, they were riding a crest of success. They did very well for themselves on independent labels prior to this, with albums like Locust, Abortion Technician, and Hairway to Steven, etc., etc. There's more than that. But then they got signed to Capitol Records. And just prior to this album, the lead singer Gibby Haynes was the lead vocalist on Ministry's Jesus Built My Hot Rod, which was a massive success. And the single for Jesus Built My Hot Rod is up there with one of the biggest selling singles ever in the Warner Music catalog. It was massive, massive video play, massive club play. That song was everywhere in the alternative clubs where I used to go. So, hot off the heels of him being the lead singer for Jesus Built My Hot Rod by Ministry comes Independent Worm Saloon. Like I said, their Capitol Records major label debut. And I don't want to say this is a little bit more commercial sounding, but it's a little bit more commercial sounding for them. You have to put that in context of the first time I ever got introduced to the Butthole Surfers was when a friend of mine, about 87, 88, gave me a taped copy of Locust, Abortion Technician. So when you first hear that album and then you hear this, you can see there's a little bit of a progression, so to speak. But there was two big songs off this album anyways. Who Was in My Room Last Night was a big club single and was a big video single as well. And Goofy's Concern was another big single off this album, in the clubs and elsewhere. College radio, I'm guessing, as well. So yeah, not much more to tell you about this album. That's kind of a lead up about the Butthole Surfers if you're not familiar with them. I think the album after this, a lot more people probably know that one. I think it had the hit single Pepper. A lot of people know the Butthole Surfers by that song. Anyways, I digress. Anyways, that's this is my Grail. My Grails are, whenever I talk about Grails, they're always a little bit odd. I'm going to guess not a lot of people would guess this would be a most wanted item. But, you know, a lot of your Grails, a lot of other people's Grails or albums, I just from the sheer fact of how long I've been collecting records, I usually have those records. You know, I have all the minty copies of Sgt. Pepper's and things. You know, I have all that. it's a lot of the late 80s, early 90s kind of albums now that I'm considering most wanted. The ones that were very hard to find on vinyl. Even when I was in retail, they were, when vinyl was declining, even tracking down those albums on vinyl at the time were a little bit difficult. So, yeah, there you go. There's the album. And although the story I'm going to tell you was the tour after this one, it's Butthole Surfers related. I just want to kind of get a story out there for those of you who might enjoy a story about the Butthole Surfers. All right, so this was about, and the only thing about this video that I tried to Google before pressing record was the actual date of the show here in my city, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I can find no listing of it. And in my possession, I have a big, massive bag of all the ticket stubs I've ever had for concerts since 1984, which was my first concert. But for club shows, and when you get guests, a lot of people might know this, when you get guest lists, whether you win guest list from a contest or whether you were in retail and you got guest list from the record label, a lot of times it's just your name at the door, there's no ticket attached to it, and so I don't have any kind of record of it, so I couldn't go back and look exactly. But what I do recall, it was at a place called The Rev, which had recently changed its name over from the Bronx, same venue. I don't know why they changed the name to The Rev, but the Bronx was a very kind of influential underground club in downtown Edmonton, and now it's called the Starlight Room. And it's all coming full circle because now I have a DJ spot there every now and again for my specialty parties, but you don't need to know about that. Another really quick aside, the Bronx / the Rev / the Starlight Room is where Nirvana made its only Edmonton appearance on their Bleach tour. And for the 120 people that were there was 20,000 people locally who say they were there. I'm not going to lie to you and say I was there. But this, I don't even know I'm going to this story. But back around that time of Nirvana's Bleach, never mind, I lived downtown Edmonton, just not too far from the venue. And I don't remember if I was working or not, but me and my roommate Rob, our nights kind of consisted of either going to a show or there was always the kind of the nightly conundrum. Do we spend our money on shows, or do we kind of, or clubs, I guess, on the underground clubs, or do we spend our money on, we were young. So the night Nirvana played, we made our nightly trip to wherever the live show was downtown. This time it was at the Bronx, and there was this band playing. No idea who it was. We were friendly with the door guy or whatever it was, and they let us. We asked if we can just go peek our heads in, and just to see who's there. I think our general usual line was we were meeting a friend. We want to see if our friend's there, aka we just want to check it out and see, if it's busy, if the bands are sounding good. We did that for that night. We poked our heads in, and there was a band called Nirvana playing. And none of us had heard of Nirvana, which hence why there was really no one there. And Nirvana, to me, the only thing Nirvana I knew, there was a Cult song, the band The Cult. They had a song called Nirvana on their album Love. So I thought, I had no frame of reference. I'm thinking, what are they, some kind of, psyche, trippy, goth band? I don't know. I hadn't, like I said, who knows? Wasn't a lot of people there. The opening bands, whatever, didn't seem that happening. So we left. We ended up, and that was our thing. We would go if it seemed happening. We would spend our money there. Try to scam a few drinks from friends, or we would go full on, go get some drinks, and go back to our place. That night we decided to leave. So coulda saw Nirvana. Like a lot of people, they were very kind of unknown at the time. So that's a 2-for-1 story. You got Nirvana as well. Butthole Surfers. At the time I was working at a retail store. A lot of names will be left out of this story. Just because. I was working at a local record store. And at that time, I don't know if I was manager of that store. I think I just kind of came from another store, and I was kind of working my way to a manager position at that time. But the manager at the time who was training me and she was leaving was a really nice girl who I became friends with, her and her boyfriend. Later on, we became good friends. But she asked me, the Butthole Surfers are in town tonight. The label's going to give us guest list. Do you want to go? Yep. Her boyfriend wasn't interested, so I was like, yep, sure, I'll go see Butthole Surfers. And at this plays in later on. I lived downtown, and I lived just a few blocks from her and her boyfriend at the time. So we would we would swap rides to work. We lived quite far. Our store was quite a ways away from our downtown homes. So I'm trying not to make this too long. Anyways, that plays later on where we would pick each other up. We'd kind of carpool to work. So I said, sure, let's go see the Butthole Surfers. So it was at this club, which I think they had transitioned into a place called the Rev, the Bronx Starlight Room. It was absolutely packed, and I'm trying to rack my brain for the exact year. Was it 97, 98, 96? I do know I had seen the Melvins there not that long before, and I had seen the Jesus Lizard not long after. And the girl I went with, just for frame of reference, this will play in later on. She was very tall. She was like 6 foot something. Very blonde, very long blonde hair. Looked like the rocker girl part. And a lot of guys found her attractive. That plays later on. So she was the kind of girl, we would go see a show, even if it was with her boyfriend, we'd all go together. We would go see the Jizzy Lizard, and she would somehow scam her way backstage, and hey, David Yao, the lead singer, hey, David, and all of a sudden we're having drinks with David Yao from the Jesus Lizard. I know that reference some of you might not know the Jesus Lizard. Anyways, so it was that kind of girl. She could kind of get in anywhere she wanted, kind of thing. So we go see the Butthole Surfers. It is packed. And if you're local and you know this venue, you will know that when it is packed, that room, water will pour off the ceiling. The walls are wet. It just turns into a sloppy mess. I mean, for the Butthole Surfers, you couldn't get another person in there if you tried. It was just rammed full. And thankfully, because this girl, I won't say her name, she would get us around. So she kind of maneuvered us into like a side stage kind of area for that show. Because I'm sure people would have got crushed that show. And on top of that, this plays into later on. They had this massive projector. This is before the days of, those little mini projectors hanging off ceilings, projecting things onto big screens. It was a massive, that took up a lot of room. And so I'm sure that took away from a lot of the standing room. And we'll get to that projector. This plays into it again. So we saw the Butthole Surfers, and it was a trip. It was literally like you were on acid. It was just amazing. So this girl I went with, my coworker, we'll call her, she got totally just messed up. I'm not sure on what, but she was just, and I had given her a ride to the show. So, like I said, Butthole Surfers play. They just kick ass, and she's off her head. I don't know on what. I'm sure it was something, and so I'm sure it was drugs and drink or something. Anyways, show ends. I believe it was a weeknight. I do know that. Everyone kind of left early. I think there was a curfew at the venue at the time, so it empties out quite quickly. People get home. They got to go to work the next day or whatever they're doing. She decides, I'm going to go meet the band. I'm going to go hang out with them. And I'm like, okay. Didn't sound safe. And just for frame of reference, I grew up with all sisters. So just by nature, I'm very protective of my female friends, as I grew up with all sisters, having to get into the odd scrap here and there to defend them. In hindsight, you know, maybe they could have taken care of themselves, but, you know, big brother. Anyways, she decides, I'm going to go hang out with the band, and she kind of really quickly makes nice with the road crew. And I'm like, okay, are you sure you're safe? And I'm probably guessing she was speaking alien talk because she was just off her head. So begrudgingly, I said, okay, well, you know what, stay safe, and you know, and the other thing is the Butthole Surfers, very odd band, if you know them. So, like I said, begrudgingly, I said, okay, well, just take care of yourself. This was kind of pre-cell phone. This is pre-everyone having cell phones. So it's not like, she could call me if she wasn't okay, Cell phones weren't an everyday thing back then, or every person thing, if you know what I'm saying. So I leave, get a couple blocks from the venue, and I'm having some serious regrets about leaving her there. I'm thinking, Jesus, this is not good. Who knows? Like I said, in retrospect, she might have been fine. I was maybe being protective, and she didn't need protecting, but your conscience catches up to you. And I circle downtown Edmonton. I come back to the venue. By that time, everyone's gone. And I go to the door, and without me saying whatever line I was going to say to get back in the venue to see if she was okay, the door guy he assumed I was the loadout crew, part of the loadout crew. He goes, "You're with the loadout crew?" Yeah, I'm with the loadout crew. They had their own roadies, but there's always local crew to help bigger bands load in and out their equipment. So yeah, I'm part of the loadout crew. So I go in and doing a quick look around for her. Someone grabs me, part of their road crew, and once again, assuming I'm part of the loadout crew, and gets me, okay, we need to get this done, and part of what they wanted me to do is tear down this projector system. All of a sudden, I'm doing loadout for the Butthole Surfers. And all I was trying to do was make sure my coworker was safe. So anyways, I'm doing, what the fuck do I know about loadout? About projector systems, and this thing weighed a ton. So I'm just bullshitting my way through tearing this projector system down. I don't know. It was this big, massive thing, and I was like, anyways, that guy left, and I kind of went, and I was pushing some amps around, and blah, blah, blah. Kind of bullshitting my way through me being part of the loadout crew. Meanwhile, going backstage, looking for my coworker. It turns out she's gone. She's back at the hotel. She kind of went back with the band people, etc., to their hotel. And at the time, they were staying at this hotel not too far from the venue. At the time, I think it was called the Eaton Center Hotel Plaza or something like that. It's a hotel on top of a mall in downtown Edmonton. She had gone, and I kind of now I'm kind of really worried. It's like, cause she's like really off her head. You know what could happen? Things happen. That's what happens. That's why a lot of roadies and bands love to be on the road, because they find instances where you get girls wanting to go back. As it turns out, she's not a band girl like that. What you're thinking? She just likes to hang out with bands. She likes to drink their drinks and do their drugs and just hang with them. So it wasn't like she was going back for the purposes of what you might think. She just likes to hang out with the guys and in bands and that kind of girl. So, anyways, loadout's done, and I kind of just bullshitted my way through. I'm part of the loadout crew. I might have pushed some amps down the stairs of this venue, down the ramps and whatnot. Anyways, I'm trying to figure out, well, how am I going to get back to the hotel? And because I kind of figured out that's where they went. So lucky enough, I was told where the band was staying and where the loadout crew was. Like, someone had mentioned to me, if you want to come back for drinks, we're at this hotel. were in these rooms. And keep in mind, I have to work the next morning. And I'm not a party animal kind of guy. I've always been kind of at least somewhat responsible. So, anyways, I make my way back to the hotel. I think I actually gave some of their road crew a ride back. They took their bus, and I believe I gave a couple of guys from their crew actually rides to the hotel. And I'm kind of making my way from. I think they had They had 2 or 3 hotel rooms, anyways, and some of the band and crew, or some of the crew, were sleeping on the bus. So by the time I get to the hotel, party is in full force. It takes about 5 seconds for the rest of the crew to join in, and the one room I was taken to, I guess, where the crew I was with was partying, she wasn't there, obviously. Like I said, it took about 5-10 minutes for things to get really, really nuts. Like I said, it's the Butthole Surfers. Acid and other stuff. So I'm making my way from hotel to hotel, trying to figure out, is she there? Is she okay? And with the hindsight of age and experience, like I said, she probably didn't need me rescuing her. I think that's it sounds more gallant than it is realistic with time. I'm sure she would have been fine. She can handle herself. At the time, I'm thinking I'm helping a friend. Anyways, I knock on this door. That's me knocking on a door, and then it's Gibby Haynes who opens the door, and there's stuff going on in that room. Stuff. Lots of stuff. And I don't know so much if Gibby was I'm guessing he was actually. And there she was. My coworker was there. And even more completely off her head than before. And if you're a guy going backstage or going back to a band party at a hotel and you're stone cold sober, you really don't do that kind of stuff, you're not the most welcome guest. If you're trying to liberate a coworker from a hotel room who's female, you're really, really not the most popular guy there. So I find her. I'm trying to make some sense to her. We got to work the next morning. Maybe we should be going, And nothing I'm saying is making sense to her. Things are going on in the hotel room. Subsequently, I went to the other room and probably get a drink or something. And there's kind of 3 rooms, just hotel rooms, going crazy. Not crazy as in loud and wild, just crazy things going on. And, there was probably nudity. There was a lot of smoking of things, a lot of intake of things. I saw shit that night. I probably got a drink. I went back, and I'm just trying desperately to think of anything I can do to divert attention, to just kind of usher her out, make sure she's safe. To no avail. She wasn't having any of it, and the band was certainly not having any of it. As it turns out, you find out later on that I'm sure they just probably wanted a female drinking partner or other partner, drugs, maybe. Just saying. Anyways, and at a certain point, I had to just say I give up. It's like 3:34 in the morning, probably later than that actually. And I got to work in a few hours, and I've done my best. And I was her ride. I felt some kind of sense of responsibility. I couldn't get her out. And the band wasn't having any of me diverting them. And it wasn't just band, it was band and crew. And there's only so much resisting of things you could do before, you really get the hint that you're not wanted there. So begrudgingly, I leave. I'm like, okay, just take care. I'm trying to, was there, I don't think they were ushering me out, but you could kind of tell, you know, the party was going to go on without you. And at that point, I'm thinking they're probably thinking of me as a little bit of an outsider. Anyways, I'm kind of dragging this out a bit. So anyways, I went home, and I just was kind of worrying that, things are going through your head, like I'm going to get blamed if something happened to her. I was somehow responsible for her, which I'm not. I was never responsible for her. She's a grown adult. Anyways, next morning, and the thing is, I wish I could go into more detail about what was going on, but that, sometimes it's better to leave more to the imagination than me just kind of spelling it out for you. Sometimes, a raised eyebrow from the right lady is a lot more sexy than seeing just full-on nudity, if you know what I mean. So sometimes, like I said, just, me leaving it to your imagination might be a little bit more interesting than me just flat out telling you the debauchery that was going on. Surprisingly enough, next morning, like I said, this is kind of pre-cell phone, so you just, we always met at the same time. I pick her up. I'm like, hey, Jesus, like, how are you doing? You okay? And she said to me, yeah, cool. Did you get home safe from the show? She had no recollection of me going back to the hotel and me trying to, I hate to use the word rescue, me trying to make sure she was safe. No recollection whatsoever. All she said was, yeah, hope you got home okay. So, yeah, well, I spent all night worrying about that with you, that you were going to get home okay. As it turns out, I don't think she had, and I don't even know how she was up for work. As it turns out, she had no recollection of what the hell went on. That was I'm not sure if you were expecting more than that, but I think that was quite enough. Yeah. So yeah, and then as days went on, she had nothing more to add to the story. She just had no recollection of what the hell went on in those hotel rooms. I mean, nothing happened, but no recollection of her going back to the hotel from the show. No recollection of the party that went on. No recollection of how she got home. All I know is I had about an hour and a half sleep, and I picked her up at our designated meeting spot, and she had no idea that I was even there. So yeah, that's my butthole surfer story that I witnessed a lot of stuff that night with band and crew. I had to fake being a loadout guy. I stayed up all night, and in retrospect, with the benefit of time, I probably didn't really have to. But like I said, I thought I was doing the right thing, and that mythology of the butthole surfers at the time is 100% true. I'm just going to leave it at that. So that is a long, long story. I'm wondering if I'm even going to post this one. If you post it, I thought it was okay. Anyways, that is my butthole surfer story of witnessing a lot of stuff that night. And me being the good guy and not doing any of it. Trust me, I've been to enough backstages where I have partaken. But this one, me being a responsible working guy, just trying to get home that night, making sure she's safe. Anyways, I hope some of you liked that story. But yeah, there you go. Anyways, this has been David Michael, and this has been the long-ass story about my adventures with the Butthole Surfers, and I got one of my 90s grails, Butthole Surfers, Independent Worm Saloon. I absolutely love this album. If you don't know it, have a listen. Take care, everyone. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed that story. I just had to get that out there for posterity's sake, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.